And away we go here. Hi, DJ Short, back for another fantasy baseball Q&A. Again, we do this every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Welcome back. Or if you are joining us for the first time, hello. Thanks for stopping by. I'll be here for about the next half hour or so as we dig into some headlines across MLB, and I'll take your fantasy questions. We can also just talk baseball in general, whatever's on your mind. A lot going on. Remember to subscribe to the Circling the Bases podcast. Myself and Scott Pianowski are on that show regularly at this point. Yesterday, we actually had some fun toward the end of the episode, and we talked about our favorite sitcom, uh, classic sitcom TV theme songs, which was a lot of fun. If you have some favorites, feel free to drop them here. But that was a fun discussion. We have something special planned for tomorrow's show as well. So remember to subscribe to Circling the Bases wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, the big news of the day really came down yesterday is that Bryce Harper is on his way back. Happy Bryce Harper Day, everyone. Came a little bit earlier than most of us expected. Bryce Harper, of course, underwent Tommy John surgery after the Phillies World Series run last year. And here he is, 160 days later. He's going to be in the Phillies lineup tonight against the Dodgers. Pretty incredible. The fastest player ever to return from the surgery. And originally, the Phillies were talking about mid-season perhaps that Harper would be ready. That was the expectation going into fantasy drafts this spring, but there was a pretty big tell toward the end of spring training. The Phillies did not put Harper on the 60-day injured list. He's slowly been ramping things up with hitting. He's been doing a lot of hitting in simulated games, so the Phillies feel comfortable enough with his progress there to not waste any bullets in a minor league rehab assignment. He's just going to hop right back out there. As far as, is he going to be in the lineup every day? That'll be worth watching, I think in the early part here. But of course, he's going to be used exclusively as a designated hitter out of the gate here for the foreseeable future. Been some conversation about him playing first base. Of course, the Phillies are without Reese Hoskins, so that is a possibility down the line. I believe he's been doing some workouts there to get more formal introduction to the position. But for now, DH only, and fantasy managers don't mind it at all, especially if you got a nice value in fantasy drafts. And let's see. I'm going to start reading your questions here again. Make sure to get your questions in here. I like giving you guys a little bit of time to get into the room, start submitting your questions. I don't want to rush into anything right away. So the little Harper spiel out of the way. Of course, very happy to have him back. But our first question from Brian: I have both Harper and Bader stashed. I have room to activate one of them. Who would you roll the dice on for this week? I would use Harper this week. I just think the upside is a lot higher uh, with Harper. Maybe potentially hitting a couple of tanks in that Phillies lineup. And if you look at Harrison Bader, someone I was big on. I wouldn't say big, but I liked him as a value play in the late rounds of mixed league drafts this spring. Of course, before the oblique injury for Bader. But he really struggled in his minor league rehab assignment. I think the defense is big there with Bader. Of course, the Yankees need the outfield depth here with Aaron Judge going on the injured list with a hip strain. It's considered minor, and I know Aaron Judge really pushed to avoid the IL. But if they backdate this IL stint, Judge can be back as soon as next Monday, I believe. And the Yankees feel like that is a strong possibility. So Bader can come up and play really, really good center field. Whether he's going to hit the ground running offensively, I think that's a legit question. Has needed some time to shake the rust, and maybe Harper will too. I just think the upside is a lot higher with Harper right now. So I would roll with that and not really overthink it. So up next we have Mike. Are Taylor Ward and Tyler O'Neill okay to drop? What to pick up, Bryce Miller, Senzel, or any hitter that currently has a pulse? It's a good question. I think I'd rather have Ward than O'Neill right now. Uh, and hey, Nick Senzel, I mean, credit to him for persevering all sorts of injuries in recent years and has been great over the past week. Um, really, at his best, this is a former top prospect with legit speed, a dynamic type of talent. You love the ballpark there in Cincinnati. Do you trust his ability to stay healthy? Of course not. Anything could happen in any time. With Bryce Miller, I'm a little hesitant about trusting him uh, with the Mariners. I mean, first off, progress with young pitchers, not a straight line. We see many prospect pitchers come up and struggle. I was surprised by the call up as well because he hasn't had a great start to the season, so that caught me a little bit off guard. I wouldn't necessarily count on Bryce Miller, but in a deeper fantasy league, go for it. Uh, I could see maybe dropping Senzel or dropping O'Neill for Senzel, but of course the injury history is there. And, it's something you have to be cognizant of. Before we move along here, just a quick reminder: download the RotoWorld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in your app store today. Some more news this morning: Nicky Lopez hitting the injured list with appendicitis. So the Royals, according to Ann Rodgers of MLB.com, are calling up prospect Michael Garcia is a top prospect in their organization, turned 23 years old in March. Right-handed hitter, speed, I think, is something that certainly will make him useful in mixed leagues to start. The numbers in AAA this year haven't been overly impressive, hitting 242 with one homer and a 696 OPS, but and four stolen bases in 7 attempts, so 4 for 7. Not great, but he stole 39 bases last year. We know the Royals like to run, so uh, I think if you're in a deeper format, AL only, deeper mixed league with multiple utility spots or middle infield, that type of stuff, um, Garcia's someone to take a look at this week. Excuse me. So next here, Miguel Amaya called up with Yan Gomes likely headed to the concussion injured list after a strong start. Is Amaya worth grabbing as a replacement? Yeah, it's a shame about Gomes. He's been off to a great start. I actually picked him up in a couple of leagues recently, riding the hot hand. And Gomes has had a history of being useful at times as well. Amaya, he's somebody we heard a lot about, a couple of years ago. I haven't heard as much recently. In the wider prospect community, it's kind of fell a little bit. But the numbers in AAA this year are pretty good. The plate discipline isn't bad either. Uh, I do wonder how much he's going to play. Of course, the Cubs also have Tucker Barnhart, right? And I'm pretty sure he's healthy right now, so they could just lean on the veteran there. I think, two catcher formats, maybe you try it. NL only, certainly you take a stab there, but Gomes also might not be gone very long. Concussions are tricky. Travis d'Arnaud is still out, but of course he has that history of concussions too. So it could vary, but I wouldn't go nuts, especially in a mixed league for Amaya here. Up next, we have Mitch with a question. I've been stashing both Matt Mervis, of course, Cubs prospect, and Alex Caroloff with the Twins, but now have to choose only one for my NA spot. Who should I keep? That's a tough question because I like them both. Kirilloff has the injury history, and he hasn't produced in the majors in a couple of years. The wrist injuries have a lot to do with that, but there's also just the question of his ability to stay on the field. And the Twins optioned him, Kirilloff, I'm talking about here. The Twins optioned Kirilloff once his rehab assignment expired, essentially. The maximum number of days he could be on his rehab stint. So maybe that's a little bit telling. I think they just want him to get as many at bats as possible. And after all the time he's missed over the past couple of years, With the Cubs, Eric Hosmer isn't doing much at all. I think it's just a matter of time before we see Mervis. I haven't seen his results in the past couple of days, but I know he's been matching generally in AAA this year. I would stash Mervis and take my chances there. I really like Kirilov. I have him in multiple leagues as well, dynasty leagues, you name it. I still believe in his future. At least assuming he can stay healthy. So we'll hop over here to Michael, and he says, "What side of this trade do you prefer, Machado and Chisholm for Arenado, uh, Tim Anderson, Bellinger, and LeMahieu?" So let me think about this for a second. um, I mean, I think I like Machado and Chisholm better. I know Machado hasn't produced at a level we would expect. It was probably just a matter of time before he does. So, good on you for buying a low as far as that's concerned. I believe in the Bellinger hot start as well, but when you are acquiring four players, you generally also have to drop two players. So that context is important, and it's also why I don't love who wins this trade sort of questions, because there's always these repercussions, especially when you have to drop a player. Um, so in a vacuum, yeah, of course, it's great to get four players who can be in most mixed league lineups on a daily basis. But I think Machado and Chisholm, the upside of those two players is probably higher than the upside of any of these other four. And I'm saying that even as someone who thinks Arenado will be better and believes in what we've seen from Bellinger so far. Up next, what the heck do we do with Jose Abreu? Good question. Abreu, had the power outage last year with the White Sox, and so far we're seeing a lot of the same thing here with the Astros. Zero homers, 535 OPS. It's frustrating for sure. I think you have to stick with him. I don't think he's a player you are going to drop, but I get the frustration. I would probably just hold and hope for the best that things come together for Jose Abreu, but maybe we were a little too optimistic on Abreu uh, joining the Astros, and the Crawford boxes. It all seemed to match up, right? But I would not drop Jose Abreu yet, but I would certainly have a backup plan if possible, especially uh, in a shallow mixed league. Perry with the question. Good morning. I guess it's morning where you are. It's a little past 1 p.m. Eastern where I am. But Alec Bohm, Lamont Wade, Harold Ramirez. I would take Alec Bohm out of this group. Wade can be a beast against right-handed pitching. Ramirez has had his moments as well. Has had a good start to the season with the Rays. I like Bohm. Qualifies between first base and third base. And he's going to be counted on a lot in this Phillies lineup. Harper's return, I think, has this cascade impact on the Phillies lineup. You look at the Phillies offense so far; it has not been very good at all. 15th in runs scored, 13th in on base percentage. Harper's going to improve that. Lengthening the lineup there in Philadelphia, counting stats impact on some of these other players. I like Bohm. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet, especially in that ballpark. As the summer moves along, the weather heats up, all that good stuff. Is Gunnar Henderson a good buy low? Too talented to not bounce back. I believe it, and I think the early success of the Orioles, this uh, crazy winning stretch that they've had recently, takes the pressure off Henderson a little bit. You know what I mean? I think if he was being counted on to be the stud right out of the gate, uh, maybe there'd be a lot more attention on it. I don't really feel that from what I've seen. Certainly you worry about the strikeouts, and I think if these struggles continue, over the past 7 days, he did hit a homer in the past week, but still not really putting it together at the plate. I think there will come a time where eventually the Orioles may have to think about a demotion, but I believe in the skills, the pop, and the speed. The ballpark isn't what it once was, but multi-position eligibility as well. I think it makes sense, but it depends. It all depends on the context and what you're giving up here. Next up from Sam, yes. What do you think of Sonny Gray rest of season? Keep riding the breakout season or sell high ASAP? Thanks in advance. Well, I think it always makes sense with a pitcher who's off to the kind of start that Sonny Gray is to ask around, especially if you have depth on your roster as far as starting pitching is concerned. It's certainly worth looking at it. The ERA for Sonny Gray 0.77. The expected ERA is 2.96, so a couple points higher on that ERA, but it's still a very good expected ERA. And with Gray, we've seen the pitch mix change this year, so there's certainly something to that. Getting a lot of whiffs on the curveball and the slider as well. So I don't think this is necessarily a fluke. And he's had really good seasons before. It wasn't too long ago that we thought of him as a fantasy ace. That was kind of his days with the A's. But yeah, I mean, anytime you see these pitch mix changes, uh, something can flip where a pitcher like Gray can jump up a couple of tiers among fantasy starters. And I think he's deserved his success so far. But it never hurts with a pitcher, a hitter off to a hot start to ask around and see what you might get. You might be surprised, especially with a lot of pitchers hurt, uh, you know, sidelined in the early part of the season. We're going to see some of those pitchers return in the coming days here. Justin Verlander is going to make his Mets debut on Thursday. Max Scherzer coming back from the injured list or coming back from his suspension on Wednesday, both pitching against the Tigers this week. As a Mets fan, looking forward to that and hoping they can add some, stabilization to the Mets rotation. Luis Severino is on his way back, but there are a lot of pitchers who, are sidelined right now. So you might be able to. Tristan McKenzie's out. Um, Brandon Woodruff. You can go on and on. So if there's a team who's a little bit desperate for starting pitching help, you might be able to find a nice deal. So it's always something to keep in mind, for sure. And the best case you can make is with a pitcher who you look at the peripherals, you look at the expected numbers that is actually backing up the success. I think that makes it a little bit easier to make a trade rather than being like a little bit disingenuous. Before we move along here, just a quick reminder: you should definitely tune in to Peacock this weekend. Sunday morning means MLB Sunday leadoff. Watch exclusive live games all season long on Peacock. We have an interleague showdown coming this weekend. The Orioles travel to Atlanta. I was just mentioning the red hot Orioles travel to Atlanta to face the Braves. That should be a really fun game. Catch the action live this Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Definitely check that out. I'm on the post-game show, making some betting picks. Usually I pick one from the actual Peacock game and then two for the rest of the afternoon games. It's been a lot of fun so far. Look forward to making some more picks this weekend. So next we have, do I keep Jacob DeGrom going forward or move on? Of course you keep Jacob DeGrom. I know it's tough with all the injuries we've seen in the early part of the season. And that can get crowded and complicated and all that. But DeGrom when he's on the mound is the best pitcher in baseball. So you keep Jacob DeGrom. I think no matter what, unless we get further indication that we're talking about a multi-month absence or anything like that. See, that's kind of to me a no-brainer. Mitch, look at a stream, a pitcher tonight who you like best: Wells, Wesneski, or Mason Miller. The concern with Mason Miller, of course, is that he's not going to pitch deep enough into games. So that is out for me. I think you'd go with Tyler Wells probably against the Royals. Wells off to a good start so far. Ryan Yarborough going for the Royals, not an intimidating offense whatsoever. So I would keep riding Wells. I had high hopes for Wesneski coming into the year and still does have quite a bit of potential, but I think Wells is the play for this game. I also like Joey Lucchesi against the Tigers tonight, another AL Central team that we should not scare you offensively. So those are two good streaming plays for tonight. both available in more than 50% of Yahoo leagues. Wells and Lucchesi, definitely go pick them up if you can. Rhino with the question: who do you think is the better stash? Encarnacion Strand with the Reds or Jordan Walker? It's got to be Walker, right? I don't see any other way about that. Of course, when Encarnacion Strand comes up, he's going to be in a great hitter's ballpark. But have we really cooled on Jordan Walker that much? I think the Cardinals just want him to get every day at bats. A little weird the way that it all went down, but the Cardinals outfield is legitimately crowded right now as they're, I think, trying to figure out what to do with Tyler O'Neill. Get him on track, because if he's himself, he can be really good. Alec Burleson in that mix. I mean, there's a lot of playing time to go around. Dylan Carlson, of course, Lars Nootbaar. So it's a numbers game, and you don't want Jordan Walker to sit on the bench. So I can understand that, but yeah, all around, I think Walker's still going to have a major presence with this team uh, as the season moves along here, and I think the Cardinals will need his offense too. Good problem to have. I have Cole versus Cleveland, Ryan versus the White Sox, Mason Miller versus the Mariners, Beatty versus the Yankees today. Can't start all four. Which rookie is the bench? Like I was just saying, I would bench Mason Miller. Now I know the Mariners have struggled offensively recently, really all season. So it looks attractive on paper, but the Yankees offense isn't anything to write home about either right now, especially minus Aaron Judge. They do not scare me at the moment. I would go with Beatty, who has a chance to pitch a little bit deeper in this game. Colin, 10-team NL only head-to-head and have too many bats. Who should I drop to activate Harper at a Donovan, Mervis, Vargas, Soler, or Senzel? NL only to have that kind of depth. That's enviable right there. I would keep Donovan. Has a multi-position eligibility. Love the on-base skills. Mervis, we talked about earlier. Miguel Vargas, not off to a great start, but I still believe in him. Jorge Soler, the power, yes, not much else so far. Nick Senzel, we mentioned him a little bit earlier too. I think it would probably come down to Mervis or Vargas. Just a matter of how patient you're willing to be with Mervis. But I think that second base eligibility for Vargas is a big deal. But Donovan gives you that as well. So I think it's between Mervis and Vargas. And if you wanted to, bank on the upside of Mervis, I wouldn't blame you there. Zach, I've got too many outfielders. How do you rank these four for the rest of the season? Lars Nootbaar, Austin Hayes, Joey Gallo, and Josh Lowe. I would. I think you had the order close to right. I would maybe swap Lowe and Gallo, but I think you have the order right there. I believe in what Hayes has done. I like what Nootbaar has done since he came up late last year. Lowe's making some progress. Gallo, I think, is just, he's made some better swing decisions so far this season. We know the power is top tier, but if he hits more than 220, you're going to be surprised, and that is a drag on the rest of your roster. So that's where I'm leaning right now. I think Lowe also, we haven't seen the best of him yet. I think we've seen the best of Joey Gallo, if that makes sense. So that's kind of where I'm leaning right now. So up next, if Urias has a third bad start in a row and people are getting antsy, would that be the time to target him as a buy low, or would you offer before the start in case he bounces back and the window closes? So I'm going to pull up Urias's baseball savant page here. I know he's struggled. I've watched a couple of his starts. Just want to get a better sense of exactly where he's at right now. So strikeout rate is right in line with where he usually is. Walk rate the same. Expected ERA is almost a full run lower than his actual ERA right now. The velocity is a tick down from where he usually is. So, yeah, I think there's a case to be made that better days are definitely ahead for Urias and the win potential there with the Dodgers. I think Urias deserves to be considered a top 20 fantasy starting pitcher. May not have that monster strikeout upside of the other aces, but I think there's chances are he's going to come back and be rock solid. So I don't know if I would take the chance and wait out this start. I think you could be aggressive on him, and that's totally justifiable. So we have about 10 more minutes here, depending on how many questions we get. So feel free to throw those in the queue here, and I'll try to get to them in the next 10 minutes. Wanted to mention Brett Beatty real quick. He's at this point, I believe, rostered more than 50% of Yahoo leagues. I'm just going to search it real fast. I'd be shocked if he wasn't. He's okay. So he's rostered in 46% of Yahoo leagues. So still out there in about a half of Yahoo leagues. I think I would jump on this as soon as possible. Beatty went 2 for 13 to begin after his call up. The first 4 games, 2 for 13. Since then, 11 for 26, 2 homers, 2 doubles. Hit a homer off a lefty yesterday, getting more playing time against left-handed pitching. And the Mets need this offense. They need another power bat in this lineup. And I think Beatty can be the real deal. Has a 600 batting average on balls in play during this crazy stretch that he's had recently. But I've been impressed, man. He makes a lot of hard contact. He's making the plays at third base as well. I think he has to play every single day, or at least as much as possible. So I'd make sure that Beatty's picked up. Big time potential. Do you think Adam Wainwright is worth a pickup when he's back? I wouldn't be like rushing to the waiver wire to pick him up. I just don't know if he's going to be a huge difference maker in mixed leagues. Can he be competent? Yes, I've doubted Adam Wainwright before, I guess. So, maybe he's going to prove me wrong again. I kind of hope maybe he will. I want him to have a good, fruitful end to his career. But yeah, I think the Cardinals would love that, just that stability back in the starting rotation. I'm not sure how much it's going to resonate in fantasy leagues. I've probably been saying that for a while and been proven wrong. We should mention Gavin Stone with the Dodgers as well. So he's reportedly coming up to start on Wednesday against the Phillies. Was really, I think, made his mark during spring training this year. Had a great spring. Wasn't a real consideration to make the opening day roster. He was sort of in the mix, but never really seemed to catch steam, even with those impressive numbers. Got off to a bit of a slow start in AAA, but 15 strikeouts and 9 2/3 innings, just 1 run allowed over his last 2 starts in AAA. He was awesome in the minors last year. The question is how long Stone sticks around. Right now, it seems that the Dodgers are just giving the other starters some extra rest. So bumping everyone back. Maybe Stone is a one and done, goes back to the minors. But I mentioned this on the podcast yesterday, circling the bases, that Noah Syndergaard just not looking so great. On paper, his start on Sunday looked decent, but he didn't strike out a batter. Only 3 swings and misses. In his previous 3 starts or 4 starts, he only had 2 strikeouts in each of those starts. Uh, so yeah, this is not the Syndergaard of old, and I think there's an opening here potentially for Stone, especially if he pitches well. I know the Dodgers invested some money into Syndergaard during the offseason, but this is a team that there is some real competition in the NL West at this point, and they're going to have to put their best team out there. I think we're used to seeing the Dodgers just play for October, but I think they're going to have real tougher challenges this season. So definitely someone worth keeping an eye on. Let's see. Let's go. Is Jack Sawinski for real or a sell high player? I think he's for real in the sense that if you look at the batted ball data, I mean, he hits the ball incredibly hard. So that's a key indicator for me that the power is legit. we're going to see more and more of it. The speed is a little bit sneaky too. I think he already has 4 or 5 stolen bases. The Pirates love running. That is a key. I think it's a matter of how many at bats he can carve out. Can he get that? Right now, maybe there's a little bit of a platoon, but if he keeps hitting well, I don't think he can be denied in this Pirates lineup. So I don't think he's a sell high, especially because there's just not a lot of track record there. So when you sell high, it's sort of like, what are you selling for? Like, to what end are you trading Sawinski? I think he's the kind of player where you hold and hope it's something close to legit. Big question here today, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Any update on Corbin Carroll's MRI? Of course, there's a knee situation going on with Carroll. The severity of it has been downplayed, but was sent for imaging on Monday, and we haven't heard anything yet. I don't know whether that's a good or bad. I can't tell you anything about that, and we'll just have to wait and see. I'm assuming we'll get an update at some point today. So hopefully that's the case. Would you trade for Kershaw or Wheeler of the Phillies, or can Kershaw keep up a good start so far? I think Kershaw's upside is more limited at this point, and he has had, I don't think you're counting on like a 200 inning season with Clayton Kershaw. I think if you got 150, you'd be thrilled. I think Wheeler's upside is higher and can still go out there any day of the week and be one of the best pitchers in baseball. I know it's been a little bit of up and down for Wheeler so far. I would prefer to have Wheeler versus Kershaw, but I think Kershaw is just kind of steady. When he's out there, he's going to be solid. You know what I mean? So I don't think you can really go wrong on this, but Wheeler is probably the play for me. Up next, Alex, who to stash? Encarnacion Strand, Keston Herstad with the Orioles, Cowser, Manzardo. Believe that you mean Andy Rodriguez with the Pirates, Royce Lewis. So I think the players we're most likely to see in the majors this year, well, we could see a lot of them out of this group this year. I have my eye on Royce Lewis with the Twins, of course, coming back from another knee injury, but former number 1 overall pick for the Twins. We saw a little bit of him last year, and he really showed some good ability in that small sample. He's a pretty exciting player. I think we could see him by the end of the first half with the Twins. Andy Rodriguez, he was recently banged up as well, but being a catcher, and he has a lot of potential as well. I think not getting nearly as much attention as he deserves. Encarnacion Strand is a name to monitor for sure. It's just hard to tell with the timing whether he might be up, but yeah, I'm kind of digging Royce Lewis. I think he could be an impact kind of player at some point this season. So keep an eye on him. Have time for maybe one more question here before we go, unfortunately. So Mark, 12-team Roto wins and quality starts. Please rank Bryce Elder, Logan Allen, Domingo Germán, Braxton Garrett, and Wesneski, Hayden Wesneski with the Cubs here. So, I will go. I'm going to go Allen, Elder, Germán, Wesneski, Garrett. Sounds about right to me. I think Wesneski is capable of making a jump on this list. I trust the Guardians when it comes to pitching. We'll see when everyone's healthy how this all shakes out. But I think Allen can come up and maybe not have the upside of a Tyler Beatty, but be very serviceable. And Guardians just, man, they know what they're doing here. Elder, I'm not sure is quite as good as his numbers have indicated so far, ERA, but probably should hold on to a spot, moving forward. He certainly pitched well enough. Germán is kind of hit or miss for me, but I still would put him ahead of Wesneski and Garrett for the time being. So that will do it for me this week. Thank you so much for the questions. And you can always catch me on Twitter. If I didn't answer your question here, I apologize. You can hit me up on Twitter at DJ Short. And remember, subscribe to the Circling the Bases podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to record another episode tomorrow, myself and Scott Pianowski, Waiver Wire Wednesday. We have a really fun end of the program planned for tomorrow as well. So definitely check that out. Also go to NBCSportsEdge.com, check out our player news feed, download the app, all that good stuff. Thanks again, everyone. I will see you next week.